Whenever you see a hearse go by, you know you'll be the next to die. They wrap you up in bloody sheets and throw you down 10,000 feet. They put you in a big black box and cover you up with dirt and rocks. All goes well for about a week until your coffin begins to leak. The worms crawl in, the worms crawl out, the worms lay pinnacle on your snout. They eat your eyes, they eat your nose, they eat the jelly between your toes. A big green worm with rolling eyes crawls in your stomach and out your thighs. Your stomach turns a slimy green and pus pours out like whipping cream. You spread it on a slice of bread, and that's what you eat when you are dead.
Aviation. We were never born to fly, but that did not stop man from trying, and in 1903 the Wright brothers made history by running their first flight to get off the ground. They followed up on July 27, 1909 in Fort Myers. The first flight with a passenger using a counterweight lifted in the air by several men and dropped to catapult the airplane forward for takeoff. The flight lasted 1 hour and 12 minutes and broke the world record for longest flight with a passenger. The flight reached an altitude of 150 feet and the race was on to break world record after world record. You can't talk aviation without talking about Amelia Earhart. Born on July 24, 1897, she was 3 days away from turning 12 when the Wright brothers made history. In 1928, Earhart became the first female passenger to cross the Atlantic, and in 1932, she made history as the first female pilot to fly solo across the Atlantic. She was ambitious, adventurous, and started the 99s, an organization for female pilots.
Of American women flyers has done it again. She already holds the record from coast to coast, and now she has bettered her own mark by nearly 2 hours. Lady Lindy sure can get there in a hurry. Here's George Palmer Putnam to meet her, trying hard to conceal his pride in his winghead's better half.
Well, what kind of a trip was it, Amelia?
Well, it was very interesting, as always. I took off at midnight and had the loveliest moon I've ever flown with for a good part of the trip. And then I had a little trouble inasmuch as my hatch cover became loosened and I had to land. And I wasted probably 2 hours by going off my course and landing in Amarillo. And then I came on and nothing particularly exciting happened. What time did I make, by the way?
Your total time from leaving Los Angeles to here was 17 hours and a few moments. How long were you on the ground?
Well, I must have been on the ground 2 hours and a half.
That would make about 14 and a half hours flying time.
Yes, and next time I hope I can do that actually.
She's testing her plane for a flight that has never been made. Amelia Earhart, around the world the long way around, tropics, equator. At Burbank, California, a takeoff with a heavy load, testing gas consumption. She'll need plenty of gas. The plane rises slowly. One hop will be 2,500 miles, needing 1,100 gallons of gas. Testing compass direction, too, for navigating the circle of the globe at its greatest. And she lands to report the trial of gas and compass.
Famous for a flight 5 years earlier that made her the first woman to fly the Atlantic. Amelia Earhart in 1937 took off from Oakland, California to girdle the globe by air in the region of the equator. At that time, no man ever did it, and America's #1 feminine ace wanted to be the first human to achieve it.
However, much like the flights that will be discussed, her plane, herself, and her navigator Fred Noonan disappeared when she attempted to be the first woman to fly around the world. While this tragedy was the first missing plane and aviators to circulate the globe, it wasn't until 1945 that sparked the world's interest in plane dropping off the radar. On December 5, 1945, Flight 19 departed from Fort Lauderdale on a training exercise on a clear sunny day. United States Navy Lieutenant Charles Carroll Taylor led the flight. They departed at 2:10 p.m. to drop torpedoes on Hen and Chicken Shoals, and they accomplished their goal. However, their attempted return something went wrong, and nobody really has an answer other than their last radio transmissions, with the last received at 6:04 p.m. That was the last contact any of the 5 aircrafts ever had, and they have not been located since.
Powers, what is your compass reading, Powers? I don't know where we are. Must have gotten lost after that last turn. MT-28, this is FT-74. What is your trouble? Both my compasses are out, and I'm trying to find Fort Lauderdale, Florida. FT-28, all planes in flight. Change course to 090 for 1 minute.
Right.
We've just passed over a small island, and we have no other land in sight. Turn on your emergency IFF gear, or do you have it on? IFF gear was off. I'm turning it on now. We are now flying 270 degrees. We will fly 270 degrees until we hit the beach or run out of gas. When the first plane drops below 10 gallons, we all go down together. Everyone understand that?
To add to the mystery, 2 Martin PBM Mariner flying boats took off at 7:27 p.m. from Naval Air Station Banner River and were diverted to aid in the search were also never seen again. Their last routine radio transmission was at 7:30, and at 9:15 the SS Gaines Mills reported seeing flames from an apparent explosion that were 100 feet high and lasted 10 minutes. They tried to search for survivors through the oil and aviation fuel-coated waters but found nothing. The PBM was known for leaking fuel, had just taken off with full tanks, and the fates of the 13 crew members and their aircrafts were ruled as a catastrophic explosions and no trace was ever found. This single day, the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle was born. The phrase did not appear in print until 1964, and it was popularized by author Charles Berlitz when he published his book titled The Bermuda Triangle in 1974. After that, supernatural and mystery enthusiasts alike researched the area extensively. While it's reported around 50 ships and 20 airplanes have gone missing in the triangle, which the typical mapping of the area isn't universally accepted, some earlier accounts came to light. The triangle has claimed not just planes, but ships as well, and sometimes just people leaving their vessels abandoned to sail alone, run aground, or swallowed up by the sea. Dating back to the First World War, the USS Cyclops left Brazil on March 4, 1918 bound for Baltimore, Maryland carrying a crew of 306 naval personnel and manganese ore. When the ship left port, it was never seen again. The ship was due in on March 13, 1918, and when USS Cyclops never arrived, searches were conducted but were unable to locate the vessel, the crew, and all were declared lost at sea. Much like Flight 19, the U.S. military deemed the cause of the loss as unknown, and it remains today in naval history as the highest loss of life in a single incident not involved in combat. Searches still continue to this day to find the wreckage of the USS Cyclops and put the mystery to rest, however to this day it still remains a mystery. The next mystery came in the form of an abandoned ship, sometimes called a ghost ship, that was spotted on January 31, 1921 by Cape Hatteras, and it was reported as in good condition until it was damaged running aground at Diamond Shoals. After identifying the vessel as the Carroll A. Deering, the Coast Guard boarded the ship only to find the sails were set, prepared food was made but was untouched, and all else on board seemed to be in order. Everything, that is, except the entire crew, totaling 12 crew, was missing. The lifeboats were missing, and no distress signals were sent out. Around the same time, the Hewitt was hauling sulfur from Texas to Maine when its last transmission was sent out on January 25, 1921, with its last location off the Florida coast. Some believe the ships collided but was dismissed as not debris, lifeboats, oars, or crew members were located either. 58 crew members were now feared to be lost at sea. Many theories circulated soon after and continue to this day. Again, no trace was ever found of these ships either to this day. The last Bermuda mystery we'll discuss. It's still one of the biggest mysteries of all, with the pilot living to tell the tale. On December 4, 1970, Bruce Jernon, accompanied by his father and business partner on a routine flight from Andros Island in the Bahamas bound for Miami, Florida. Bruce had traveled this route several times and never had an issue. It was just supposed to be a normal 90-minute flight. Piloting his Beechcraft Bonanza, Bruce felt something strange almost immediately. At about 1,000 feet, he noticed a strange cloud seeming to grow right in front of him. It wasn't too alarming, however at 11,500 feet he saw a similar cloud that was so massive he had no choice to fly through it. It was dark and completely void of sunlight in the cloud, but it wasn't a storm cloud. It almost became a tunnel he could fly through. Uncertain, Bruce knew he had to hold on. There was an airy feeling as the clouds swirled around him and he felt like he was in it forever. Luckily he came out the other side, praying nothing like that happened again until he reached Miami. To his shock, after leaving the tunnel, he was already in Miami. A 90-minute flight turned into a 47-minute flight. He did the math over and over, and with his plane's top speed at 180 miles per hour, it was impossible for him to have traveled the 250-mile flight in the time frame that he did. He consulted with many scientific and aviation experts, but no conclusion was ever given to define the speed and time length of his flight that day. As one mystery started, another mystery began far from the Atlantic Ocean in the last state bought by the U.S. in 1959, Alaska. On October 16, 1972, two congressmen boarded a Cessna 310C just before 9 a.m. with a pilot and a political aide in Anchorage, Alaska, bound for Juneau, Alaska. Congressman Hale Boggs from Louisiana was on the campaign trail supporting Alaskan Congressman Nick Begich, alongside his aide, Russell Brown. Piloting the aircraft was Captain Don Johns, who was a very accomplished airman who owned the Cessna, and the charter company the plane was flying under. Though the weather wasn't perfect, it was flyable, the plane had just been serviced, and the 575-mile flight had been flown hundreds of times. John's only transmitted communication was to verify weather and routine communications. No distress signal was sent and no one was ever made aware of any problem. After the plane never arrived at the scheduled time, concern grew, which was higher in this case due to two congressmen on board, and the largest air search at the time was conducted. The search lasted 39 days and was called off on November 24 without finding any traces of the plane or 4 men aboard. The NTSB released their report on January 31, 1973, and without concrete evidence and lack of evidence, the fate of the flight and cause for the disappearance remains as undetermined. Just as in Flight 19 and the Bermuda Triangle, this lost plane started the theory of the Alaska Triangle, and investigating started in that region. It was later brought to the public's attention in association with the Alaska Triangle that on January 26, 1950, a Douglas C-54 Skymaster, which was part of 1st Strategic Support Squadron, disappeared en route from Anchorage, Alaska to Great Falls, Montana. Those aboard included 8 crew members and 36 people, including 2 civilians and a woman and her infant. It was delayed for 2 hours due to trouble with an engine, but eventually took off. After the plane never made it to its second destination in Ishihik, Yukon, and also did not arrive at its final destination. A combined search of the US and Canada efforts, over 350,000 square miles, were searched and resulted in 3 plane crashes with no fatalities. The search efforts were called off on February 20, 1950, and all were presumed dead. Although no trace has ever been found, in 2012 the descendants of the missing servicemen petitioned for a resumed search, and in 2022 using drones a search was restarted. To this day, however, the plane and those missing on board continue to remain unaccounted for. Again, the mysteries were not limited to just aircrafts, and the Alaska Triangle had far more unexplained accounts involving everything from aliens to Bigfoot. It's reported that over 20,000 people have gone missing in that area, with 16,000 of those disappearances being after 1988. Roughly calculated, that is 1 out of every 1,000 people out of the entire population in Alaska go missing every day. While most are land-based, connected to missing persons reports that stem from a range of possible foul play to getting lost or disoriented, it is hard to comprehend that staggering statistics. The Alaska Triangle is also the area which is no stranger to UFOs, and some people argue it is the site of the most well-documented close encounter in human history. On November 17, 1986, Japan Airlines cargo flight 1628 was flying from Paris, France to Tokyo, Japan, with a stopover in Anchorage, Alaska. On board was Captain Kenji Terachi, co-pilot Takanori Tamefuji, and flight engineer Yoshio Tsukuba. At 5:09 p.m. Alaskan time, Anchorage Flight Traffic Control contacted Flight 1628 asking the craft to change its heading to fly south of Fort Yukon. After the co-pilot turned the plane left 15 degrees, Captain Terachi saw lights out of the left side window and just below them. The captain contacted Air Traffic Control to ask if there was any other planes in the area, which he was informed his plane was the only one on radar.
Do you have any traffic Japan 1628 Heavy, negative. Japan 1628, Roger. And, we can place, 2 traffic, Japan 1628, Roger. Do you have, can you identify the aircraft? We are not sure, but, we have traffic info now.
Information obtained from Captain Tarachi: 2 lights appear about 500 to 1,000 feet in front of them out of nowhere. A bright light filled the cockpit and all 3 crewmen could feel warmth from the lights. Both the crafts in front of them were either rectangular or tall cylinders shaped with lights on the sides, and occasionally the center sparked like charcoal flames. They were flying slightly above them, matching their speed, and about the size of a Boeing 707. Though ground control radar did not observe any other planes, the onboard radar was showing something on their radar between 8 to 10 miles in front of them. It was a clear night, and when the captain looked at the first lights he had seen, he could see a giant silhouette behind the light, and the ship was slightly behind them. That's when astonishment turned to fear. This went on for over 30 minutes, and when air traffic control saw a United Airlines passenger flight in the same airspace, they were told to check out Flight 1628. Upon the United flight observing the Japan Airlines cargo flight, the lights, or spacecrafts, disappeared.
Okay, I've got someone coming by. UA69 Heavy, you've got the Japan airliner in sight, but I don't see anybody around him.
Upon landing, the 3-man crew gave their first-hand accounts of the incident. Captain Tarachi not only gave his statement, he also drew several sketches of what he had witnessed, which were very descriptive. From start to finish, he could illustrate the entire encounter, but with no corroborating evidence from ground control radar, the FAA closed the case, at least in the public eye. It did eventually come out that the military were aware of the interaction and confirmed that after the United Airlines did not observe anything visually out of the normal, that their military radar had picked up on a craft tailing both the United Airlines flight and JL Flight 1628.
Military radar advises they do have a primary target in trail view this time.
Though today it has not been openly confirmed by the FAA or military ruled the strange flight factually being that of a UFO. While planes disappearing never to be seen again, and UFOs being seen in both aircrafts in flight and accounts on the ground, most would think there could not be any more to this story. However, they were wrong. Reports of whole towns being chased away overnight by a creature in the surrounding town named Nantianak, the possibility of Bigfoot in the triangle quickly gained traction in local lore and legends. Although the town of Portlock, Alaska was later chalked up to stories made up by locals to protect their ancestral land from outsiders, stories of an Alaskan Bigfoot soon had worldwide coverage, and a new area was on the hunt for proof of the legend. Many believe that the thousands of people going missing inside the triangle were casualties of the mysterious creature. A few missing can be easily explained in the rugged terrain, but thousands missing furthered the mystery of this desolate wilderness. With so many missing aviators with no signs of wreckage and without remains from those missing, the mystery of the Alaska Triangle remains very much unexplained. More mysteries started to pop up, however this time, in a whole different area in the lower 48 states. On September 3, 2007, Steve Fawcett was visiting with hotel mogul Baron Hilton when he took off out of Flying M Ranch piloting a Bellanca Super Decathlon on a pleasure flight. He told his friend he'd be back in a few hours and did not file a flight plan as it wasn't required on small aircrafts. Most weren't worried, at first, because Fawcett was a very accomplished pilot, not to mention he broke over 100 world records in his lifetime, including flying a hot air balloon around the world as well as a glider. Optimism turned to worry when hours went by with no sign of him, and the emergency locator transmitter, which is designed automatically to alert when a plane crashes, did not go off. During the following days, the largest peacetime air search in U.S. history worked tirelessly to find the missing aviator and his plane. The search was officially called off on October 7, 2007. Almost a year to the day, on October 1, 2008, a hiker discovered personal effects belonging to Steve Fawcett, including ID cards, over $1,000 in cash, and his sweater. Not long after, the wreckage of the plane was found, alone with 2 bones belonging to Fawcett. It was located about 300 miles below the crest of the mountain and 65 miles front the airfield. The plane showed signs of fire damage and the FAA determined the propeller was still spinning at impact. In their report, they determined the plane was in proper working order and was taken down by a mountain wave, a phenomenon that air rushing over mountain tops can increase in excess of 500 miles per hour as the air flows down the mountainside. It was chalked up to a freak accident. During the air search, 8 more plane crashes were found, though some were repeat finds. While not all planes went missing without a trace, several military plane crashes happened in the triangle. Some were located years later with the deceased still inside, some were not. In 1957, Lieutenant David Steves took off in a Lockheed T-33A Shooting Star fighter jet on a training mission. Shortly after takeoff, an explosion on board caused the plane to go down and Steves ejected from the aircraft. Lost in the cold wilderness, he wandered for 15 days with his parachute for cover until he came upon an abandoned cabin. He survived eating the canned goods in the cabin, fishing, and using his pistol to hunt her. 53 days after the crash he was rescued and drew what happened and where he crashed. The plane was never found and some believed he sold the plane. He died under a cloud of suspicion until the plane was found after he died. More mystery builds in 1941. Lieutenant Leonard C. Lydon got lost from his squadron and ejected. He reported where his P-40 jet had crashed, however no trace has been found to date. In August 1964, Charles Ogle left Oakland, California bound for Las Vegas. Neither him nor the Cessna 210 he was flying have been seen again. On July 11, 1986, Major Ross Mulhare lost his life in the Triangle. Without cause, he flew his F-117 fighter jet into a mountain and the FAA could not find an exact cause for the crash. In modern day, the Nevada Triangle has sparked the most conspiracy theories, with almost every theory being connected to Area 51. Although reported to have opened in 1938, it wasn't until the Roswell, New Mexico incident that it became well known. Story goes, in 1947 an alien aircraft crashed in Roswell and the evidence was brought to Area 51 under absolute secrecy and it was released to the media as nothing more than a weather balloon. Military personnel in later years refuted the cover story and back up the original story of an alien crash. Being on the edge of the Nevada Triangle, some believe that this secret base could be the cause of all the missing and crashed aircrafts. Of course, overshadowed by the plane crashes, missing aircraft, inconclusive incident reports, and one of the most secretive and highly classified military bases, another mystery still deserves recognition. Several people have gone missing in the national parks in the Nevada Triangle that should not be forgotten. Whether from getting lost, accidents during hikes, or just missing without a trace, an uncalculated amount of people are still missing in the national parks, with Yosemite National Park seeing the highest number of disappearances. Disappearances that are still unsolved. When cases go cold, the family usually accepts the fact that their loved ones are no longer with us and whatever happened to them ultimately led to their untimely demise. Still, loved ones with family members want some sort of closure, resolution, and answers. Every scenario runs through their kids from possible abductions or foul play, tragic accidents in the sky, the ocean, or in remote wilderness, to a slim chance of hope their loved ones disappeared on purpose. There have been cases of missing persons reappearing years later for whatever reason, but with nothing to go on their minds continue to only guess what happened. One notable mystery of a missing persons case dates all the way back in 1931 in Death Valley, situated on the southern side of the Triangle. Dr. F. Bruce Russell moved to the dry, arid climate to improve his health and was later joined by his friend, Dr. Daniel S. Bovee. Bovee had been on archaeological digs in Mexico and the two explored the area for mining. While in a mine shaft, a hole in the floor gave way into a series of tunnels and chambers. While investigating the catacombs, the two found the most extraordinary find, 3 giant mummified men ranging between 8 and 9 feet tall and dressed in clothing made from an animal they didn't recognize. In another chamber was riches beyond belief, ranging from gold to silver to jewels and pottery that was similar to Native American origins, and hieroglyphics on the walls in an unknown script or language. After making their way out, both men took their story public. They were met with skepticism, but managed to convince a few to follow them back to Death Valley. With the shifting sands, they were unable to find the cave system again. Bovey left the area and was never seen again, and no trace of his life was found after. Russell, being both broken, vowed to find the site again, only to venture back into Death Valley and vanished. Although his car was found abandoned in Death Valley with a busted radiator, along with a single suitcase containing his personal effects, he has never been found to this day. As in all 3 triangles, there are areas in the world with some of the most unforgiving regions that usually make it hard to locate anyone who goes missing. What we do know is from the wreckage of planes, ships, and circumstances around the disappearances, and sometimes it takes years to find any trace of evidence that lead back to the fate of the missing. Sometimes, remains are located that put their mysteries to rest, though the number of unsolved cases far outweigh the cases that are solved. The wrecks or remains that are found give scientists a basis for what the conclusions could be for those who haven't been located yet. In Bermuda, the electromagnetic fields can be sketchy, leading to planes being lost and simply running out of fuel and crashing to the ocean. Inside the Bermuda Triangle is some of the greatest depths of our oceans that we have yet to discover. Ships can encounter many weather phenomena, from hurricanes to rogue waves that can reach 100 feet tall. Unpredictable storms can pop out of nowhere and could capsize even some of the largest ships on Earth. Modern-day pirates also are a chance encounter and could take a crew and their valuables onto their ships, leaving the original ship to sail by itself until it runs aground or is spotted by other vessels. In Alaska, there are many factors, most notably the high peaks of the mountainous terrain. Compass interference is also a problem, and again, planes and people could get lost. Without adequate survival gear, it's almost impossible to stay alive to be rescued. Also, its high altitude acquire a lot of snow and ice and can bury wrecks, or people can be covered by avalanches for years. The least popular triangle, the Nevada Triangle, has similar instances just as in Alaska. The Sierra Nevada mountains are located there and experience a phenomenon known as mountain waves that can send planes crashing into mountains, some of which are not easily accessible, meaning planes that have gone missing could stay missing for years, sometimes decades. Several national parks are also in the area, with threats ranging from animal attacks to falling off cliffs, or just getting lost unprepared to survive in remote areas. No matter what theories anyone has in the quest to find answers, until the wrecks are found or the missing people are located, it's anyone's guess to the ultimate conclusion of these 3 areas and the tales that haunt them. Without answers and evidence, the legends and beliefs remain. Beyond human and science.